So recently, I was chatting with one of my past mastery clients who I now count as a really good friend, and she was telling me about one of her stockists. So this is a e-commerce retail store in a very specific niche, and this stockist had been given some pretty damaging advice about how to scale her business, and specifically around Facebook ads. And it was just such damaging advice to spend upwards of 40% of her revenue on ads, which is pretty tough ask when you are a reseller of other people's brands. Your margins aren't generally that good. And it nearly sent this poor woman bankrupt. Now, I'm actually not sure if that person is still in business. I really hope she was able to pull back from the brink and salvage things. But the conversation got me to thinking about two really important things, important in my opinion anyway. The first being, what are we all optimizing for in our business? Are we optimizing for growth? Are we optimizing for profitability? Are we optimizing for having a lot of free time? And the reality is that these are opposing forces and you just can't maximize them all at the same time. And then the second thing that I really got to thinking about is how a lot of business owners just don't figure out a way to pay themselves at all. Sometimes this is a lack of knowledge around managing cash flow and generating profit, but sometimes it's also a conscious decision to delay the payday to some, potential future date when a really big vision is realized and perhaps the business is sold, and to keep reinvesting every possible dollar in the business towards that end goal. And look, ultimately, there definitely are people who start businesses and they can afford to not pay themselves, but a lot of the time that's actually not the intent, right? And I think that getting caught up in that growth at all costs mentality often results in an entrepreneur just constantly chasing shiny objects. And what I mean by that is jumping from one expert or program making really big promises to another without necessarily taking the time to learn the fundamentals of business or to set their own personal goals and decide what's actually really important to themselves, or without realizing that the fastest way to growing a successful business is a little bit like getting fit, right? It takes dedicated practice and repetition with constant improvements over time. That overnight success silver bullet, it just really doesn't exist. We actually do have to do the work. There is no magic button. Now, building predictable, profitable growth can feel a little bit obvious in theory for a lot of people, but it is often overwhelming in execution for most of us. And I think just like my getting fit analogy, what is actually required in business is a simple framework for planning and executing profitable growth that you can practice every day. And I'm going to share a few details around this today in this episode. Plus, at the end of the episode, I'm going to share a free resource that will help some of you towards, I guess, taking the steps towards mastering this for yourself. Now, so I want to start by asking you, at the moment in your business, are you working like 50 hours, 60, 70 plus hours a week, maybe late nights and sacrificing your weekends? Do you find that you just can't switch off from it all, at nights or, when it's supposed to be family time, that maybe getting any sales at all is really dependent on you showing up and doing the hustle and grind dance every single day? Someone referred to that recently as being like the dancing monkey on the circus ball. You'd fall flat on your face if you stopped moving for even a second. Sometimes, this feels like it's a bit of a house of cards that could come tumbling down if the wind shifts. Although I would argue probably a lot of you listeners, I know I've certainly got some of my clients who, they just really worry that if they don't spend every waking minute working, that their business might break. And in actual fact, their businesses aren't that fragile. And things will keep going. However, if you are in that position where you are, working your butt off frantically trying to keep things all together, then that's exhausting and it's not sustainable long term. So maybe right now you do have customers buying from you, but you just don't have a consistent, predictable way to acquire new customers to get those people buying from you the first time. Or maybe you do have some website traffic, but either not enough of it or just not the right kind of people visiting your website. Maybe you feel like there's just never any money, like you might be making revenue, but there's just, not enough left over in your bank account at the end of the day or the end of the month. Or just there's not enough sales coming in. So you feel this pressure to discount just to sell to whoever is there. And all of that causes more issues like inconsistent cash flow. And, if you, I guess I want to say, like, if you're struggling with any of or all of these things, please know that it's actually a very normal human experience. It's a very normal entrepreneurial experience. I think most of us probably go through that to some degree at some point, but it's also fixable. So I don't want you to lose hope. And there is, let me tell you just in brief next about the daily framework that I use and that we use here that you can start to adopt or adapt yourself in your business. And there are 5 parts to it. First thing that everyone does when they work with me is, or that I do with them, is to document a set of expected outcomes based on data. Like this, you shouldn't be plucking this from thin air, that align your business towards a clear financial objective. So this is goal setting, but it's goal setting in a very specific, intentional way. And we're making data-driven plans here, right? And then create a system for tracking performance to that goal every day. So this is probably going to be a little bit challenging for those of you who are allergic to spreadsheets or who really don't like numbers very much. But the reality is, as a business owner, particularly in a online business, like an e-commerce business model, have no choice. If you really want to succeed in business, you have to master this. So second step is to create a system for tracking performance to that goal every day. The third is to identify where you are on or off track. And this is where this regular daily practice comes in, right? And, the reality is, doesn't matter what business you are or how experienced you are in business, it's not a straight line. It never will be. Too much in the environment around you that you're operating in changes in ways that you have no influence over, right? And so there will always be times where we do veer away from our end goal, right? So step 4 is to course correct quickly. And again, this is only possible if we have this daily practice in place, and so we can course correct quickly and we're not spending days or weeks or months, not looking at this and then realizing it's a little bit too late to fix it, right? And step 5 is to win. Everyone likes that bit. Now, this kind of framework, it's an iterative process. So it's a repeating process, which I think some people mistakenly believe is a negative thing because, you have to keep repeating the steps of the process over and over again. And it can feel a bit like, well, it didn't work because I haven't won yet, right? And so that's a bad thing. But in actual fact, the feedback loop that happens in this kind of a repeating process where you do actually enjoy a series of wins over time actually helps enormously because you get those regular dopamine hits every time you hit step 5 of that daily practice of, achieving those wins along the way. And those, regular dopamine hits when you achieve each milestone towards your bigger, longer term goal, it really helps to encourage you. It helps you to feel more confident. It helps you to notice the wins before, the negatives that you have to overcome, and, it keeps you motivated and et cetera, right? So iterative process, really good thing. Now, when it comes to your growth strategy, I mean, having a data tracking, planning and tracking framework, it's not enough, right? Like you still need to have a growth strategy that will drive that growth in your business. And you do, for an e-commerce business model, you do need to make sure that your plan incorporates the three essential elements of, increasing the traffic to your website, increasing your conversion rate, and increasing your customer lifetime value. So if you can do that, then you will grow, right? Now, each of these three pillars has a set of specific inputs or variables that we can manipulate, and you can learn how to manipulate and pull those levers, right? And combining all three is what results in that predictable growth. And I think probably most of you know these three things, or at least two of them. I mean, customer lifetime value perhaps isn't thought about or spoken about quite as much if you're earlier stage in your business, but generally I think most people realize they need to get website traffic and they need to make sales conversions. And if your customers spend more, that's going to help you make more money as well, right? And I think most business owners that I observe, you're already doing things to try and get that traffic and those sales conversions, but in my experience, a lot of you are going about it in a less efficient, effective way that ultimately costs you more. So right now, and it's been like this for some time, I'm observing a lot of e-commerce brands mistaking marketing with posting content on social media and running ads and maybe working with some influencers or content creators as well. And they think this is enough to build brand awareness and get traffic and sales. And maybe there'll be some other things in there like conversion rate optimization and stuff like that, right? Now, these are definitely tactics that many of us, and in fact, probably most of us, would incorporate into our overall growth strategy. But tactics without strategy is really flawed and will probably have a very short lifespan before you need to change it up again. And also, there are a ton of entrepreneurs and small business owners out there reaching for AI technology like ChatGPT to try and get as efficient as possible about producing and sharing that ton of social media content and marketing emails. And I'm not going to spend this episode diving into ChatGPT or AI specifically. I've done other episodes about that before and blogs and things that will, focus on good ways and not so good ways to use these tools. But I came across a statistic yesterday that calculated the volume of emails that we're all receiving in our inbox now, right now, we're in October 2024, is more than double what it was at the start of this year, purely because of these AI tools. And the issue here is that all of this content is created as an amalgam of existing previously published content. It's not new content, really. It's not new thoughts. It's not new original content. It's basically just content for the sake or the purpose of ticking off that job of creating content, right? Without necessarily much strategic thought or intention about the purpose of that content or how it's supposed to contribute towards the end goal, right? And additionally, the AI technology that is now the driving force behind the two biggest ad platforms that we all use. So Google's Google and Meta platforms, Facebook, Instagram, etc. They have the vast majority of eyeballs online in terms of being able to drive traffic. So the volume of traffic coming from those two entities versus any other, it's where the vast majority comes from. But when you're advertising on these platforms, basically they have these algorithms behind their ad platforms, and Google's AI-driven algorithm, it's their PMax broad match, and then Meta's got their Advantage Plus suite of products that now the driving force of that ad platform. And I just want to touch on how these have fundamentally changed the way digital advertising works to drive traffic now. So historically, these digital advertising platforms operated as an auction, and so as advertisers, you essentially bid how much you wanted to pay for a click or a conversion. And so, a little bit of the control and the decision making was up to you, I guess. But now, with the AI-driven algorithms behind these platforms and the insane amount of data that each platform has on all of its users, and they don't share that data with us advertisers anymore because they don't want to share it with each other. But rest assured, they are still collecting this data. They know everything about us, really. The platforms can track our purchase conversions. They can see exactly how much money that we're making in revenue from each click and conversion derived from one of the ads that you might be running. And so, and I guess they can have a pretty educated guess at how much it costs you to make your goods and what the margins are that you're playing with, right? Now, if you've noticed over the last couple of years that your ad costs have gone massively up, then you're not wrong. I mean, these ad platforms are making absolutely squillions in profits off us advertisers. They will happily take every last dollar of profit between your cost of goods and your retail price because they know that a lot of people are going to pay it, right? There is not really too many other options for driving consistent traffic to your website. So they have a pretty firm belief and confidence that advertisers are going to pay that. And they have intentionally throttled the kind of organic reach of content that you share so that it is a pay-to-play scenario. So then the merry-go-round spins a little bit faster. We try and do more with less. We use AI tech to produce even more content at low or no cost without the need for human contribution so that we can save as much money there as possible, only to wonder why the humans intended to interact with that content aren't engaging very much at all. So conversions go down further and ad costs go up even further. Let me take a deep breath. It's time to get off that merry-go-round and put a stop to that vicious cycle. I want to suggest rethinking your approach to setting and achieving your goals. We don't rise to the goals that we set ourselves, but instead we fall to the level of the systems that we put in place. I didn't make that statement up. I'm not sure who originated that statement. I've heard it before, but it's really true. And then I also want to suggest rethinking your relationship with your customers because I think that, it's never been more evident that the most valuable currency in business actually isn't cash. The most valuable currency in business is, you might abbreviate to KLT, which is know, like, and trust. So I want to suggest going back with why you're in business. And I'd say that the reason most entrepreneurs in my audience started is and this is a question that I actually ask all of the guests who I invite onto my podcast. It's like, what do you love the most about being an entrepreneur? And most of them say, they appreciate and love the freedom of time and the autonomy over their work and the choice that gives, the choice and control it gives them about their lifestyle. And, most of my audience are mums like me, and, they like to have that flexibility, but they also want to make money, right? It's pretty hard to afford to have a lifestyle of choice and freedom without some money. And for years, many digital marketing agencies, experts, coaches, etc., have been saying that you just need to spend more money on ads to drive more traffic. And, a lot of businesses are taught that increasing your revenue is the way to change your life. And look, historically, early days of meta ads in particular, I mean, you could kind of play that return on ad spend game and know that there would be enough profit, enough fat in the margin, because the ad, when these ad platforms were young, the return on ad spend was huge. And so you kind of could play that game. You knew that when you drove that traffic and sales and the return on ad spend had such a huge margin that you would be profitable. But it's not like that anymore. And so to achieve the outcomes that most of my audience desire, so that freedom of time and lifestyle choice, it actually requires a focus on growing a profitable business with a focus on profit rather than top-line revenue. And by unlocking profitable growth in your business, you get to transform your life forever, and you get to have mastery over your time so that you can choose to do what you want, when you want, with whoever you want. And so there are three main outcomes that, when you combine together, help to generate profitable growth. So I'm going to just touch on them now. First is customers. Obviously, without customers, you don't have a business, but you don't want just any old customers. You want customers who come back and buy from you again and again. You need to acquire and retain customers from two inputs: getting traffic to your online store and having a great website conversion rate. The reality for most online stores is they don't know where their next customer will come from. And the reason for this is twofold. They have not worked out the right formula for getting that consistent and increasing volume of traffic to their website. And, obviously without spending too much money on ads, right? Secondly, they really don't understand what elements of their website make it convert a visitor into a buyer. And that's not going to be the same for every business, depending on what your product is, who your customers are, what your positioning in the marketplace is like, how competitive the marketplace is, how, are you a reseller or a brand owner? What are your margins? Like, there's so many different contributing factors that come into that conversion rate equation for each business. And thirdly, they haven't calculated how much they can actually afford to spend to acquire each new customer. So, we are spending money on ads, right? But how much can you afford to spend to acquire each customer? So to achieve profitable growth and acquire enough new and repeat customers, you need both traffic and a high converting website, but you also need to know your prices are profitable after your fixed and variable costs, how much you'll make after those costs, and your lifetime customer value as well, so that you know how much you can afford to spend on ads to generate that first sale. The second thing that you need, of course, is profit. So this is, profit is necessary to fund your business growth. It is your reward as the business owner, but it is also what enables you to invest in growth, invest in new products or innovations. Profit is what helps you to achieve your ultimate vision and goals for your business. Yet too many e-commerce brands operate on the assumption that profit will magically appear in their account at some stage if they can just hustle hard enough. They don't understand that it costs them money to win customers, so they need to ensure that their return on investment on that cost is as good as it can possibly be. And if we do a poor job of communicating our product or brand value to our customers, or if our website is too hard to navigate or transact, customers just aren't going to forgive you for those things. They are not going to expend the brain calories to figure it out. They will go somewhere else where it is easier. And it is easy for them to understand the value on offer and how to buy it. To achieve profitable growth and generate enough profit to fuel your business growth and to pay yourself, right? You need to convert traffic to sales at the highest rate possible. You need to make as much money per transaction as possible. And again, this requires being a master of your numbers, pricing, fixed overhead costs, variable costs like advertising and fulfillment costs, and your customer lifetime value. And then cash flow. Cash flow is the lifeblood or the oxygen of your business. You can be profitable on paper, but if your cash flow is completely unpredictable and you don't have a consistent means of generating revenue, then your business is at risk. Yet too many times I see e-commerce business owners assuming that just because they have a website, customers will automatically find it, and that just because they have great products, customers will automatically know that and spend lots of money with you. And they fail to understand that these results are not a given. In many cases, it's actually just as easy to sell a $200 product as it is a $20 one, and it's even easier to sell to an existing customer than a new one if you have the right marketing strategies in place. So to achieve profitable growth and create consistent cash flow in your business, you must have the right traffic strategies, getting customers to your website on tap, along with a high customer lifetime value. So it is a model, right? Now, I've developed some really sophisticated tools, sophisticated in their functionality, very unsophisticated in terms of technology, just using spreadsheets. But they are tools that we use and we teach our clients how to use as well, that plans and tracks each of these components, from pricing and profit margins to conversions, average order value and customer lifetime value, and how you can optimize and improve each one. And we have tied all of these aspects to the financial aspects of your business. So it's the financial aspects of your business is tied into the marketing and advertising planning and tracking tools so that it becomes a really very simple process to set revenue and profit targets and calculate your ad budgets to hit those targets predictably and to track your progress as you go. So right at the, early of this episode, I said how that iterative process that we want to have in our business is to, first of all, set those goals and expectations in using data. So it's a data-driven goals and expectations in your business, and then have a method of and tying that in with the financial goals of your business, and then having a process of tracking it daily, and then identifying, where you are veering away from the goals and off track so that you can pivot quickly. And so that, that process of planning, doing, monitoring and optimizing is what helps you to win. I remember one of my mastery clients saying to me a little while ago that she never used to want to look at her numbers. She was not naturally a numbers person, I guess, but because she was afraid that they would show her up as being, I don't know, like incompetent in some way or failing in some way. But, the reality is, and it's her reality now as well, that having this simple daily framework to plan and track the key numbers in your business and of course, mastering the skills to influence those numbers. I mean, it's one thing to know the numbers, but it's another thing to have the skills to influence them as well, which is certainly another learning curve. But that's what has given her and, my other clients as well, that sense of power and autonomy over achieving their goals. And now they get to enjoy those regular dopamine hits when they hit those little wins along the way. So if you would like to learn a little bit more about my growth framework for free, you can grab the resource that I alluded to at the start of this episode. Just head to katherinelangman.com/get more sales. That's all one word. So you can download that free resource that I have published. And essentially what it documents is the formula that I use to reliably drive more visitors to websites, e-commerce websites, generate more sales, and skyrocket your online store so that you can feel more in control of your business destiny and achieve your growth goals with more clarity and confidence. Or if you know that you're at the point where you just need to learn this stuff and you would rather not, waste more time figuring it out alone, might be time to book a strategy session with one of my brand growth advisors and just see if we are a good fit to help you. So if you want to do that, you can head to productpreneurmarketing.com/let's-talk, and I will make sure to include both those links in the podcast show notes page for this episode so that you don't have to remember it. That's it for today's episode, though. I really hope that you've enjoyed this one and have an amazing rest of the week. And I will be back in your ears again on the show next week. Bye for now.